forgiven even. But such reporting, if not treasonous, is based on hate not only for Trump, but for our nation, our troops, and for that, there is no forgiveness.
Get more Larry Connors on Larry Connors USA.
Tonight at 6 on News Talk STL.
John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 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 John Bill.
It's JC's Wayback Machine. 3 big hours of great tunes from the 90s, 80s, and 70s. Plus bits and pieces that'll take you back to the best years of your past.
Album cuts, forgotten songs, and lots of little treasures.
Or a hole in your head or a whole new head. JC Corcoran, he's back.
All brought to you by the Weber Automotive Group.
It's JC's Wayback Machine. Every Saturday night, 6 to 9. On News Talk STL. News Talk STL. This hour of the Allman Report brought to you by STL Fenceworks. Celebrating 50 years of industry-leading service for fence, deck, and leisure space solutions. Visit stlfenceworks.com.
Give me land, lots of land, and the starry skies above. Don't fence me in. Let me ride through the wide open country that I love. Don't fence me in. Let me be by myself in the evening breeze. Listen to the murmur of the cottonwood trees. Send me off forever, but I ask you please. Don't fence me in. Don't fence me in. Just turn me loose, let me straddle my own saddle underneath the western skies. On my cayuse, let me wander over yonder till I see the mountains rise. I want to ride to the ridge where the west commences. Gaze at the moon until I lose my senses. I can't look at hobbles and I can't stand fences. Don't fence me in. Don't fence me in.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a fancy Friday. Yes, indeed, everybody. Jamie Allman here with you. Ashton over there with the controls. And yeah, Tim Jones is going to join me at about 1 o'clock because we've got a lot to talk about. One of those things will be, which I think is a disease that has hit pretty much all of Missouri, and that is a wildly outsized increase in your property tax assessments. And I experienced this. I mean, it was shocking when I got my assessment in the mail, and it was 3 times what I paid for the home 12 years ago or whatever it was, 13 years. 13 years ago. 3 times. And a couple of problems go along with this. I could never sell the home for that amount. And of course, we all know, I'm not stupid, assessments do not reflect the value of the home for sale. It just reflects how greedy the governments are in wanting to extract every single penny that they can from your property. On top of that, let's just pretend that I wanted to sell my home tomorrow and put it up for sale. I guarantee you no one is going to buy the home because the tax assessment is so high, it would be absolutely unmanageable for most people. That's the same thing with your home, depending on how the assessment has increased. And so that's where we are right now. So it doesn't matter whether you have a $1 million home, $1.5 million home, or a $300,000 home. The chances are your assessment is high. And if you try to sell the home now, you wouldn't be able to sell the home for that amount, but you're paying the taxes on it. And on top of that, you wouldn't be able to have somebody look at the home and say, oh, look, because I sell homes with the Walnut Home Selling Team. By the way, they are brand new sponsors here at News Talk STL and of the Allman Report. And I am really pleased, happy to be with them. And you can dial me at 314-749-7179 if you want your home listed or you want me to get you into a home. I can do that. But I know for a fact, it's been my experience that people, when they are looking at a home and they are in a situation where they are wanting to buy a home, they look at the tax records. They look at the estimated taxes on that because that plays in to the monthly mortgage payment and everything else. So it's a pretty big deal. And when it is so outsized and so overblown, it becomes completely unmanageable and will run people off. And that's absolutely not acceptable for the government to be getting involved in this kind of thing and screwing you, basically, on top of the assessment. So the other day when this became a thing, I did talk to Senator Nick Shore, who just was on here for a couple of hours. Great guy. And he was fairly knowledgeable about what he thinks has happened here. And basically what happened is essentially the COVID starved out the government of its usual revenues. And as you know, the government always needs to feed off the thievery of money from hardworking people. That's really what it's all about. I can't believe that we're not on the streets with pitchforks by now. I really can't, considering the oppression that we are under regarding taxation, the fees, all that other nonsense. I am shocked that people aren't, but I think what happens is we all get used to it. Of course, it all rolls into this payment and rolls into that payment and all that kind of thing. So you don't really have to see it or necessarily write a check right off the bat for it. And so it's really easy for these governments to screw you. And I guarantee you, any government official who tells you that they have to charge what they charge in taxes to keep you safe or to keep the fire department, whatever, you ought to absolutely walk away because those people are lying to you. And that's how it works. So what happened is COVID kind of starved out the beast a little bit. And so the government had to find some way to kind of figure out a way to make up for that. And so the Missouri Tax Commission, which of course I've never heard of, and it's probably a bunch of appointees. I have no idea who makes up the Missouri Tax Commission, but apparently they sent out an edict to this situation where they said to assessors all over the state, you've got to start juicing the coffers here. You need to start getting as much as you can out of people and their property. It's basically the tax commission ordering a shakedown of Missouri citizens, and that's what's happening. And so the assessors then proceeded to go ahead and do this, and people are like, well, what about the Hancock Amendment, which is supposed to be, it was a constitutional amendment to make sure that governments weren't receiving certain windfalls through taxation and beyond. Well, the tax commission, according to Senator Shore, when I was talking to him, the tax commission had the assessors go right up to the line, like right just below the line that is drawn by the Hancock Amendment, so it wouldn't wind up being blown out by a court or whatever. And so they waited just below that mark where you can't really refute it based on the Hancock Amendment. Your appeals, you can do that. I use an operation called PAR Residential, but they're not taking any new clients anymore. We're a week away, at least in St. Louis County, from the window of appeal. So by a week from now, that window for appeal is closed, and you got to get your appeals in. And a lot of people probably didn't even think about it. They just got this assessment and just put it on the coffee table, and there it sits. But, Lisa says her real estate taxes increased 50%. While Jake Zimmerman, who's the corrupt assessor in St. Louis County, his only increased 1%. And you also have to realize what's going on, and this is happening where I live too. What the assessors also do, is they target specific areas where there maybe are more expensive homes, under the auspices of, well, you know how it is. People do this when they sue, and government people do this as well. They look for the deep pockets, and they figure, well, if we just kind of juice up, Phil Valencia just says 84% over 5. I thought for a second it was 64. It's 84% over 5 years. And that's unbelievable, and more importantly, it's unacceptable. And so what they do, though, is oftentimes they'll go and they'll do certain properties. They'll focus on neighborhoods that they consider to be wealthy. They'll focus on certain municipalities, Baldwin or Chesterfield or certain places like that, where they figure they could probably get as much as they can from these people, and they'll leave Crestwood alone, So just so it doesn't cause too much attention. So if you just select your victims the way the assessors have been doing, and you do it by zip code or by plat map or whatever else it happens to be. Lisa's in Florissant. I mean, there's some pretty nice homes in Florissant, I'll tell you that. But they'll go, but what they'll do is they'll target just certain places, certain blocks even, so that the increase in the assessments is not all the way across the board, because if it is, then you will have everybody out with pitchforks. So that's how they do it. They just do it selectively. So they screw enough people, bend enough people over, but not too many, so that the increase is isolated to a certain degree to certain areas, and other areas are left alone. And I guarantee you, the assessments in a district in which a county council seat is held by a Republican are getting a hell of a lot higher assessments than the districts held by Democrats. I can pretty much guarantee you that. So it's a scam. It's a scandal. It's something that needs to be remedied. And as I told you very early on, I would just as be happy to go right to well, Phil, it's funny you mentioned it. I called the assessor's office today, and I guarantee you, because I wanted to actually talk to Jake Zimmerman's spokesperson, try calling the assessor's office right now. Try calling the assessor's office. You will wind up in this tree of press 1 for this, press 2 for that, press 3 for that. And then ultimately, about 10 minutes later, you're going to get some old crabby biddy answering the phone who's not going to help you. That's exactly what happened to me. Well, you'll have to call the main number. You'll have to, it's like, and I did. And of course, you get a recording and you leave a recording. So that's the skinny there. And ultimately, this is what I do, because I've done this for a living, is I don't need people to come on my show, because I'll go and find them. Usually that's what happens. If you people won't come on the show, then I'll go to their house. So that's kind of how that works. Or I'll wait for their car to leave the garage at the county government center, and I'll get them then. So that's how it works. I've been doing that my whole life. And, so people who don't want to come on and do an interview or whatever, I will take it from them eventually. And but believe me, I'm highly motivated on this one. And I know Jake knows where I live. I know that for a fact because I've talked to some people in the government there in Richmond Heights. I know that they know where we are, and so I might when I appeal my assessment, I might get even a higher one after all of that, because that has happened before where people do an appeal and their assessment actually goes up even more. So we'll see how it works, and I'll keep you posted. Thanks for all your stories and everything else. And I know what you're going through, and it's pretty terrible. And again, the assessments do not reflect the value of the property. Most people, when they get their assessment notices, would never in a million years be able to sell their house for that price. And that's just the way that it is. I know certain factors go into it. It'll always be a little higher than what you could sell it for. I get that, but it's unnatural the way people are suffering now under these mad assessors all throughout Missouri. All right, speaking of the Supreme Court, I've said a few snarky things about Amy Coney Barrett, but boy, the way she took down one of these dumb colleagues of hers in the wake of this Supreme Court ruling upholding President Trump's executive branch powers, man, this is dope. I love it. I'll have that for you on the other side here. This is the Allman Report on this fancy Friday. News Talk STL.
Baby, hold on to me. Whatever will be, will be.
For podcast articles and more, find us on newstalkstl.com.
This is so stupid.
St. Louis's
Okay, I'm hanging up on you now.
place to talk. News Talk STL.
Success. It's discipline. It's teamwork. It's the drive and passion inside of us that comes before all recognition. It's the best in each of us, made better by the best in all of us. Whatever success looks like to you, Stifel is invested in yours. That's why Stifel is one of the fastest growing global wealth management firms in the country. So whether you're an advisor or an investor, choose Stifel, where success meets success. Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
During tax season, your personal info travels to a lot of places you can't control. Between payroll, your home office, your tax preparer, and the IRS, if your W-2 gets exposed, that's just the ticket for identity thieves. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points every second. If your identity's stolen, they'll fix it guaranteed or your money back. Don't let identity thieves take you for a ride. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code CLAY. Visit LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
You still thinking job change in the new year?
Yeah, I need something that's in high demand and more stable in this economy.
IT?
Yeah, cybersecurity, maybe even AI.
That's what I did.
Really? How?
Went to My Computer Career. You don't need any prior experience, and you could start your new career in a matter of months. A lot of IT pros go to school there, too, to level up.
Sweet. Are classes online or on campus?
Both.
Wow, I'll check it out. Thanks.
Make this your year. Take the free career evaluation now at mycomputercareer.edu. Financial aid is available for qualified students.
Springtime in St. Louis, and if you hate to paint, do what your neighbor, Mr. Rob Miller from Harvesttown Auto Body in St. Peters did. He called Rhino Shield. Rob, what was the thought process for going with Rhino Shield as a business owner?
My family's business is over 10,000 square feet, and it did not have the curb appeal I wanted.
Rob, tell everyone how the experience was with Rhino Shield from start to finish.
The process that I liked was when you came out, you gave me all of these options that would fit my building. Our building was really faded. I don't want to have to paint my building again. 25 years is a long time to not have to worry about the outside maintenance of your building as far as paint. That's a no-brainer. That's why Rhino Shield worked for me.
Are your neighbors jealous?
I would be if I was them.
Thanks, Rob. Now it's time to call 877-25-RHINO. 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com. Genius.
No pain, don't Rhino. Go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Looking to celebrate the 4th of July with a bang? Then look no further than Powder Monkey Fireworks in Weldon Springs. We've got bottle rockets, fountains, cakes, mortars. Our selection is endless with low prices and no gimmicks. We will not be undersold. Our friendly, knowledgeable staff will help you choose the perfect fireworks to make your holiday unforgettable. You'll go bananas at Powder Monkey. Don't want to fight the crowds? Order online at powdermonkeyfireworks.com. Powder Monkey Fireworks in Weldon Springs.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Download the all-new News Talk STL app.
Love the all-new News Talk STL app.
On my way to work in the morning.
Usually I'm in the car.
I listen on the app in my car every morning going to work.
Download the News Talk STL app and listen anytime, anywhere.
Good afternoon, everyone, and this is the Allman Report on News Talk STL. Jamie Allman here, happy with you, Ashley over there, y'all, and happy Fancy Friday to all of you. I still think Powder Monkey is like the best ever name for a fireworks company. I mean, because it sounds alternately really cool and also to a certain degree reckless, which I think is great as it relates to fireworks, because, like if you somehow were trapped in a room with a powder monkey, I wouldn't want to be trapped in a room with a powder monkey, but they are acknowledging that fireworks are fun, they're a gas, and people should stop being so wigged out about it. And so they went full bore in describing their business as Powder Monkey, which I think is just fantastic. In fact, if I could, of course it's too late in the game for me now, I would rename myself Powder Monkey. I would legally change my name to Powder Monkey and make people call me Powder Monkey. I mean, seriously though, isn't that the greatest? I don't know why I love that so much, but and especially since we were as little kids, now everybody's so squeamish about fireworks because, unfortunately the idiots all blow their hands off and blind themselves, and they ruin it for everybody when they do that, because then everybody gets all weird about fireworks when we should go back to the days when people smoked on airplanes. And we had bottle rocket fights. I mean, hell, Roman candle fights. We'd shoot Roman candles at each other. None of us were ever blinded or lost a finger or whatever else. How these dummies keep losing their limbs on July 4th is beyond me. And what we would do, the best way to do it, sometimes you'd use like a Coke bottle. But the problem is the Coke bottles were a little too short. So the bottle rockets all the spew from the fuse and everything would get you. So the best way to do it would be to get one of those plastic wiffle ball bats. You know what I'm talking about? The real thin ones. And then what you do is you would you'd go into your kitchen and you would use one of your mother's serrated steak knives to cut the top off of the bat. And then you'd return the serrated steak knife to the drawer, only to realize that a day later, your mother is going to hammer you for what you did to her serrated steak knife, which is probably ruin it. But anyway, we got the top off of that thing, and you'd have a big, long stick, and you could put your bottle rockets in there and shoot to your heart's delight, and try to find your friend hiding behind the bush over there or in the next to the swing set at the park, and just start shooting away. It was the best. And the problem is, though, too, with the Roman candles, you couldn't really do that because Roman candles don't have anything to kind of, they don't have anything to lay them on or to affix to something. So you'd have to actually hold the Roman candles. But that was okay because they were shooting out and there was no wick or anything. And so you'd just simply chase people around with the Roman candles and, aim for their back or whatever it is with the fireballs, and it was an awesome way to spend the summer. It's great. But now everybody's like, "Oh, be careful!" Blah, blah, blah. And everybody's drinking and stuff and doing things like that, and so it's not as much fun anymore because everybody gets all crazy. That's all they get all crazy. All right, so this was great. So of course, today, as you know, the Supreme Court ruled against all these activist judges, these federal judges, and it's a shame that we had to get this far. These federal judges knew exactly what they were doing and knew that their nationwide injunctions were completely unconstitutional, antithetical to the American way. They knew it. They fully expected this, and they just figured, well, in the meantime, we'll make a bunch of progress, and we'll get on the news, and people will love us and everything else, and we'll get written up in all the liberal sites and all that kind of thing. And it'll be a while before the Supreme Court hears it. And so they just went ahead and did it anyway. But they knew that this was going to be wrong. And so, as you all know, I've oftentimes, and I haven't had always the best things to say about Amy Coney Barrett. Sometimes she came across as relatively weak to me. Sometimes she came across as a little wishy-washy for a so-called conservative. A great example is that during COVID, when Amy Coney Barrett was on the side of the California government, when it told people that they couldn't sing in the choir. You couldn't have a choir in church because of the aspiration, I guess, of spit or whatever during COVID. So she canceled out choirs in church. It was really too bad. But anyway, she wound up writing the majority opinion for the Supreme Court ruling against universal injunctions. And she completely and totally nuked Ketanji Brown Jackson, because Ketanji Brown Jackson at first was, she wrote the opinion, and she thought that these judges should be able to do this. And so she was a dissenter in this. And so Amy Coney Barrett decides she's going to write, hey, we're not going to dwell on Justice Jackson's argument, which is at odds with more than 2 centuries worth of precedent, not to mention the Constitution itself. We observe only this: Justice Jackson decries an imperial executive while embracing an imperial judiciary. And that is totally and completely perfect and a dress down of the left-wing kook, Ketanji Brown Jackson. And of course, this would not be the first time that Ketanji Brown Jackson, who appears to be dumb as a bag of hair, doesn't really understand basic concepts. And as you all know, I told you a long time ago about the problem with this and the universal injunctions, and it doesn't recognize the separate but equal branches of government. Like, it's very, very simple. It doesn't recognize the checks and balances even. And so they have a federal judiciary, a lower court culture that pretends to be the executive branch and the federal government. That absolutely is a violation of the separate but equal branches of government. So it's so simple, and that, even the dumbest among us understand that concept, that there is no branch that's more important than the other, and they all exist in this separate but equal state. But to have a Supreme Court justice, this should have been a unanimous ruling, by the way, to have a Supreme Court justice have no concept of this. And it's bad enough to have normal, average, everyday, grown-up Americans walking around thinking this way. But to have a U.S. Supreme Court justice not understanding any of this is unbelievable. And, of course, people are saying now, well, I bet you we know what KBJ's response to Amy Coney Barrett was. I bet it was like, I don't understand. I don't understand. Just this 1 year.
So I don't understand. Can I just understand? And I don't understand. And so what I don't understand, I don't understand. I don't understand your argument. I'm just trying to understand your answer. I don't understand. I guess I don't understand.
You want to hear 4 minutes of this? This is 4 minutes of a mashup of Ketanji Brown Jackson. This is all from 1 year, 2024. This is 4.5 minutes of her not understanding.
I don't understand. I don't understand. And I'm just trying to understand. I don't understand, but I'm just trying to understand. I'm trying to understand. So I'm trying to understand. I'm sort of with Justice Kagan trying to understand. I don't understand.
Yeah. This is only in 35 seconds. There's 4 more minutes of this where people poured over. And again, it's not unusual. I mean, I think, Supreme Court justices do have to ask questions and things like that. So there will be a time when I'm sure even Amy Coney Barrett at one point said, I don't understand. But the I don't understand thing and the lack of being able to understand and comprehend seems to be a pattern for Ketanji Brown Jackson.
I'm still trying to understand. Maybe I'm just not understanding. I don't understand. I'm trying to understand, and I don't understand. I was just trying to understand. So I guess I don't understand, and I guess I don't understand. I don't understand. I'm struggling to understand.
Yeah. I can just keep going if you want me to. We're still not even a minute in.
I don't understand. Can you help me to understand? I'm sort of with Justice Alito in trying to understand.
Yeah, so I mean, Alito at one point didn't understand. Again, just to be fair, probably 5% of this is not an unusual lack of understanding for a Supreme Court justice. And then the other 95% of it is just a thing with Ketanji Brown Jackson, who doesn't really comprehend, obviously, basic subjects. And by the way, people who who believe that national injunctions are constitutional and have any semblance to the American way, believe me, this isn't a matter of opinion. It's a matter of fact that national injunctions are completely and totally unconstitutional. And to tell you the God honest truth right off of the bat, you learn this, hopefully, in 4th grade, the concept of the separate but equal branch of government, and that there is no branch of government that automatically supersedes the other. It's only through the interpretation of the balance of power that is built in and constructed inside of the Constitution. So there are going to be the times when the Supreme Court will cut down a decision made by the President of the United States. And there will be a time when the Supreme Court reaffirms a decision made by the President of the United States. And there's a reason why it's also called the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court itself doesn't constitute just the entirety of the judicial branch. So there are other elements of that with the federal government and beyond. And so this is a really groundbreaking decision, but this was not a difficult one. This was the easiest one even to predict what the Supreme Court would do, because you can't imagine people who are on the Supreme Court ruling anything but that national injunctions are totally unconstitutional and a aberration and a mutilation of the separate but equal branches of government. And so it just appears that Ketanji Brown Jackson doesn't understand.
I don't understand. I mean, I don't understand. Like, I'm just trying to understand. I guess I'm just trying to understand.
Okay, yeah, it's a minute in, and how many were at 100? I have no idea. But that's just the way it is. This is a fancy Friday, everybody, and I'm really happy to be with you here on the Allman Report, News Talk STL. Down the line, we got Tim Jones running around. He's going to be joining us to talk about what's been happening in Missouri. And also, by the way, going to follow up with the assessment issue, which is going to be a huge one ongoing into this summer. So keep an eye out. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
Watch us on our live stream using Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter. News Talk STL. Always streaming on your smart speaker, our mobile app, or newstalkstl.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, Clayton Sleep, ClaytonSleep.com. Dr. Ogile, what a great guy, and has been my sleep guru for, 20 years now. He's a good man. He loves common sense, conservative radio. He's a guy who just absolutely knows everything about the common sense approach to your sleep problems. And it's really not that difficult. But the fact of the matter is Dr. Ogile is top in his field, not only just in St. Louis, but around the world, because oftentimes he is invited to speak at these events and conferences and things like that all around the world. And so he's an expert in the field of dealing with sleep apnea and all the latest technologies related to sleep apnea resolutions here. And did you know that a lot of people still do the CPAP thing, but did you know there are probably 4 other ways of dealing with sleep apnea that don't involve the CPAP machine and all that kind of stuff that you have to put over your head, and then your partner's, kind of sleeping well because you're not snoring anymore, but it's still a thing. You got to carry it with you everywhere. But Dr. Ogile has a different plan for you if you want to let him resolve it for you. Pediatric sleep issues, he totally understands. He's really great at it. And, of course, when it comes to all of the other things like restless leg syndrome, sometimes people are just kind of, I hate to laugh, but it does happen. And laughing because it's just kind of miserable where your own body is waking you up involuntarily. It's just not cool at all. So check it out right there on the web. It's ClaytonSleep.com. They have the take-home apparatus for you. And also, of course, he has the clinics. And these are just wonderful clinics. They're boutique hotel-like clinics that you're absolutely going to love. So check it out on the web. It's ClaytonSleep.com. Proud supporters of free, common sense, conservative radio.
Getting new flooring can be exciting, or it can be a hassle. To make sure you have a great experience, use Michael's Flooring, like I did. Hi, it's Susie Moore, and Michael's Flooring has become my go-to for quality, variety, and an all-around great experience. They've been locally owned and operated for more than 30 years. Carpet, hardwood, laminate, ceramic tile, natural stone, luxury vinyl, it doesn't matter. Michael's Flooring is ready to help. 3 locations to pick from: St. Peter's, Darting Prairie, and Creve Coeur, or online at igotfloor.com. That's igotfloor.com.
Hey, Mike Ferguson here, and for nearly 40 years, Nutrition Stop has been St. Peter's trusted source for natural living. They've got a great, knowledgeable staff offering more than just products. They provide guidance on your wellness journey with exceptional service, from 100% grass-fed meats like elk and bison and local produce to quality supplements and clean household products. 4101 Mexico Road in St. Peter's, just off the interstate at Cave Springs and Highway 70.
Hungry for the best steak you'll ever have? Head to the heart of Moscow Mills and discover Harry J's, a local landmark and family-owned steakhouse, serving up excellence since '98. From mouth-watering appetizers to decadent desserts, Harry J's has something for everyone. Enjoy our extensive bar selection while soaking in our friendly family atmosphere. Whether dine-in or carry-out, your meal is prepared to perfection. Make the drive to 300 Main Street and treat yourself to a taste of Moscow Mills' finest. Harry J's, more than a steakhouse. We're a tradition.
Well, it is definitely summer here in the heartland. Time to call Hanson's Tree Service for all of your commercial and residential tree care. Tim Jones here for Hanson's Tree Service. Let them come out to your homestead or your business today. Take care of everything regarding the exterior of your home. Grinding and land clearing, all residential and commercial tree services. They've got fantastic organic mulch in bulk, plant health care as well. Give them a call, 636-379-1830, 24/7. They're always available at hansonstree.com. That's hansonstree.com.
On the next Larry Connors USA.
Former Biden aide says, I don't know who ordered the president's auto pen signatures. I was left in the dark.
Larry Connors USA. Now weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
Girl, you really got me down. You got me so I don't know what I'm doing. Girl, you really got me now. You got me so I get some bad night. Girl, you really got me now. You got me so I don't know where I'm going. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Fancy Friday to all of you and yours. This is Common Sense Radio. Jamie Allman here. Super happy to be with you. And yeah, grocery. I mean, I know I saw something. They always do this. You know, they do the price of your July 4th barbecue is going up. And then they go through every little. Those stores are so boring. They do it every time. Like Christmas and Thanksgiving, the price of your Thanksgiving dinner is going up this year. I was like, wow, really? And so now they're apparently, and I didn't even bother. I just saw the headline thinking, okay, it must be July 4th. All the buzz killers are out there trying to ruin it for everybody. And so anyway, I went to the grocery store the other day, had to get some things, had to get some stuff for, I wanted to pickle. Going to be making pickles out of my cucumbers, which are growing like crazy. And cucumbers are very, very wily little creatures. They're the first to grow. That's why you never put them next to like tomatoes or something. They'll just suck the life out of the soil and everything else. I think they're kind of doing that a little bit still. Even if they're a little far away from some of my tomatoes, they just take over and they're like, well, we're cucumbers. What? Come on, everybody. And they're like, you suddenly there are 10 of them, like overnight, look how long we are. It's like, gee whiz, people, calm down, cucumbers. So anyway, I have a ton of those and I cut them up and I make pickles out of them. And I love the pickles. And so I was at the grocery store getting some stuff for that. I was also picking up some stuff for dinner, and I went and got some chicken, and I was looking at it like a flank steak, like a piece of flank steak. And I was like, damn, that little piece of meat is expensive for a flank steak, and I love flank steak or flat iron steak, that kind of thing, but that seemed really kind of expensive. So the steak stuff is a little pricier these days. Chicken is kind of going back down again. The thing I can't believe is how expensive herring is. Like, I love herring, but herring must have doubled in price over the past 2 years or something, because it's really expensive. And I hope Phil's not listening, because if I mention like Phil Valencia, if I mention like herring, he's gonna like come on the Facebook. Ew, because I'd never imagine Phil eating herring. But anyway. One thing I did notice too is I don't understand why I bought some corn, right? And so I don't understand why people buy corn that is already shucked. I don't understand, because it is 7 times more expensive than if you buy it by the ear that you shuck yourself. So I'm looking at this thing, and they're like 3 things of corn in this thing, and it's like $4. I'm thinking, this is nuts. And I look at the place where I have the unshucked corn, and it's 69 cents for an ear of corn. And all you got to do is just take the take the thing off. It's really super easy. Plus, I love doing that. Like, we used to watch my grandma do it all the time because she's a farm girl, and that's really super easy to do. But I don't understand why people buy, cellophaned, already shucked corn and pay that much money for it. They're not bigger. They're anything. I don't understand why people just don't buy the unshucked version. Anyway, this is all leading to a refutation of the so-called Trump crash. Remember that the tariffs and everything else that were going to cause us all so many problems.
Comes in and basically starts the dumbest trade war in the history of this country. This is going to be about potentially millions of people losing their jobs. It's going to be about millions of people losing their savings, many of people losing their retirement security, and at the same time taking on even higher costs for everything they buy. So that's going to push us in potentially to foreclosures or people being pushed out of their apartments.
Mm-hmm. That was May 12th. And nothing of the sort, not even anything remotely close, has happened. And remember, this is April 9th when Chuck Schumer's like, the Trump slump.
Look, you can't undo the damage. The Trump slump is upon us now.
Yeah, right. So so how is that Trump slump going and the foreclosures and all that kind of going? How are your 401ks doing? Let's see. The other day, S&P 500 and NASDAQ all at record highs the other day. The tariffs aren't really necessarily doing anything. The tariffs are not really having much of an impact. Now, keep in mind, I don't do, the raw goods and things like that, so I don't really know exactly. But we're not seeing it in any way, shape, or form. And Lloyd points out the S&P 500 at an all-time high today. So these people were telling you lies. This was all a lie. It was based on no real numbers, no science. You know how these people always talk about how conservatives are always anti-science and they deal with the facts and science. Unless it has to do with math science, then they don't even pay attention at all to it. They just make up these numbers and these prognostications. And so here's the deal. When the media and the politicians back in April basically said this was all going to go to hell and everything else, the reality is if you bought more stock back in April or even just held the stock, didn't panic, didn't do anything, it's all worth more today than ever before. So if you didn't mess around with your 401k or panic or sell off or do whatever, and maybe even bought more stock back when Schumer and those guys, I bet you Liz Warren and Chuck Schumer bought stock. I bet you they, when they were talking about how everything was going to be in ruin and they were panicking people, I bet you all of those people bought stock then. When the markets turned down just on the fact, on the mere mention of them going down, I bet you those people bought stock. But they were wrong. They were absolutely, totally, completely wrong. So all the business analysts on CNN, all these other people who talked about how this was going to be hell for everybody, Liz Warren,
I remember this from 2008 and how long it took us to dig our way out. And to this day, there are families, there are communities that still haven't recovered. Recessions can be all those fancy charts and graphs, but at the end of the day, people feel them one person at a time. And
right. Forget the fancy charts and graphs. We don't need to pay attention to science. Forget and these are people who don't want fancy charts and graphs because it's just about the experience, right? Like the one person's experience. It's all about anecdotal experience. And it's funny, they really don't like fancy charts and graphs really for anything. Like, even if it's like you want to show them, hey, here's what will happen to the U.S. output of carbon dioxide if every single car turns electric. Look, nothing. 0.003 or whatever, nothing. Oh, well, no. Look at the dolphins and how they're swimming backwards now and blah, blah, blah. It's like that's what they try to do. But they'll never really look at the numbers. I mean, they won't call a baby a baby. They don't even know what a woman is. And we're the ones who are anti-science? I'm sure you all out there in internet land can think about 10 more examples of where they just don't accept any scientific truths. Look at how, even if you look at the Constitution as really basically a politically scientific document, they don't even acknowledge the basics of the political science of the Constitution. It's pretty crazy. They're the flat earthers. Now, all right, the great Tim Jones is running around out there on this fancy Friday. We're going to catch up with him in just a few. Going to follow up on our discussion of the increase in assessments and beyond. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
Want to hear the best kept secret in St. Louis? Steph's Pizza. We're not afraid to compare squares. According to our customers, we have the best St. Louis style pizza anywhere. And we can't disagree. Dine in, pick up, or delivery in St. Peter's, St. Charles, Lake St. Louis on Confort Trail, and the original Stefanina's in O'Fallon on Veterans Memorial Parkway. Check us out at Steph'sPizza.com. Steph's Pizza. We're not afraid to compare squares.
Reed's Rockets in Wright City has your fireworks. Try the Max 800 shot for a 30-minute show. Want the ultimate American celebration? Get This Is America with over 100 gigantic color bursts. Family owned and operated, Reed's caters for families with the biggest kid selection. Spend $100 or more and get a kids assortment free. Reed's Rockets, 425 West Service Road North in Wright City. Take I-70 exit 199 and look for the big red and white striped tent. Open through July 10th. ReedsRockets.com.
Reed's Rockets in Wright City has your fireworks. Try the Max 800 shot for a 30-minute show. Want the ultimate American celebration? Get This Is America with over 100 gigantic color bursts. Family owned and operated, Reed's caters for families with the biggest kid selection. Spend $100 or more and get a kids assortment free. Reed's Rockets, 425 West Service Road North in Wright City. Take I-70 exit 199 and look for the big red and white striped tent. Open through July 10th. ReedsRockets.com.
This is Mark Harder with RE/MAX Results, the #1 RE/MAX franchise in the region. As a licensed real estate broker with RE/MAX Results for over 20 years, I've seen the ups and downs of many real estate markets, including the one we're in right now. With the spring market in full swing, now is the time to leap into the buying or selling of your home. Someday is not a day. Today is the day to make your move. Call me at 314-852-8933 or email me at markhardersells@gmail.com.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Jason Walker. President Trump saying big thank you to the Supreme Court for ruling on nationwide injunction.
This is a victory for President Trump. Well, this was a big one, wasn't it? He has complained about individual judges throwing up obstacles to his agenda.
I was elected on a historic mandate, but in recent months, we've seen a handful of
radical left judges effectively try to overrule the rightful powers of the president.
That order would deny citizenship to U.S.-born children of people who are in the country illegally. Ed Donahue, Washington.
And the High Court has upheld a Texas law aimed at blocking kids from seeing pornography online. More than a dozen states passing similar age verification laws. That as smartphones and other devices make it much easier to access online porn. And the Supreme Court ruling Maryland parents who have religious objections may pull their kids from public school lessons using the LGBT storybooks. Also at townhall.com, Senate parliamentarian rules on a proposal to enact a multi-billion-dollar private school tax credit program that Republicans want to be included in the big, beautiful bill. Here's Bernie Bennett with more on the story.
Senate parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough also determined that an effort to carve religious schools, including Hillsdale College in Michigan, out of a planned expansion of the federal college endowment tax does not meet the Senate's Byrd rules criteria for the filibuster skirting reconciliation process, according to Senate budget Democrats. Republicans on the Senate Finance Committee have proposed a permanent $4 billion annual tax credit for individuals who donate to organizations that support educational expenses, including private school tuition, which was projected to cost $26.25 billion between 2025 and 2034.
More on these stories, townhall.com.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy and founder of Wesley Financial Group. And I want to set the record straight. I am not an attorney. I've never wanted to be an attorney. And the truth is, I really don't even like attorneys. If I sound like an attorney, I'll apologize. But what I've learned in my 15 years in the timeshare cancellation business is you don't need to be an attorney to get folks out of their timeshare. At Wesley, we've helped over 40,000 families cancel their timeshare, and I want to share with you how we do it. Just give my office a call. I guarantee if we take you as a client, we'll get you out of your timeshare, or you'll pay nothing. Attorneys, this was meant to be funny, so please don't sue me, especially my friend Kenneth from Black River Falls, Wisconsin.
Call now for your free timeshare exit info kit. 800-613-5454. 800-613-5454. 800-613-5454.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Seeing some spotty showers and thunderstorms this afternoon with high temperatures trying to make it into the low 90s and that heat index into the upper 90s. Put the rain chance at about 40%, but they're hit and miss, and we've already seen some this afternoon. Overnight lows in the 70s over the weekend. The high on Saturday about 93 degrees and a 30% rain chance. But on Sunday, showers and thunderstorms are likely. The high only 89. Only 89. I am KMOV First Alert Meteorologist Kent Earhart.
Tony Colombo here for my dentist, Dr. Matt Boscia at New Creation Dental Care, the one-stop shop for all your family's dental needs. And Dr. Boscia is always expanding his services, now including the incredible all-on-4 full arch implant procedure, full mouth restoration that can give you back your smile in as little as 1 day. No more suffering with damaged or missing teeth or poor fitting dentures. You can see some amazing smile makeovers, learn more about the all-on-4 procedure, and see everything Dr. Boscia can do right now at newcreationdentalcare.com.
For 3 generations, one family has ruled the road in quality asphalt paving. Ruby's King of the Road Hot Mix Asphalt Paving. Family owned and operated. We're your leading authority for driveways, lanes, and parking areas. No project is too small or too large. We cater to both residential and commercial needs with unbeatable quality and just $38 per square yard plus labor. Call 636-295-9949. 636-295-9949. Ruby's King of the Road Hot Mix Asphalt Paving. You save when we pave.
Who needs a vacation? Are you ready for an unforgettable getaway? Start packing your bags because Branson, Missouri, the vacation and entertainment capital of the U.S., is calling your name. For just $99 per person, here's what you get. A full 3-day, 2-night stay in a luxury resort hotel, a delicious full breakfast buffet every morning you're here, and when you call right now, free show tickets worth up to $100. That's right, free show tickets to an award-winning show on us. You don't have to leave the country for an amazing vacation. You can drive or fly to Branson and have an incredible time. Whether you bring in the whole family or just planning a romantic escape, this trip is built for you. We guarantee you'll love Branson. This is not a timeshare. It's just an unbeatable vacation deal for only $99 per person. You book now, you can use your tickets anytime this year. You don't even need to know your travel dates to lock in the special price. Hurry, because this offer won't last long. Call our Branson vacation experts today.
800-547-5331. 800-547-5331. 800-547-5331. That's 800-547-5331.
News, analysis, opinion.
It almost seems common sense, but, alas, common sense isn't so common these days.
News Talk STL. This hour of the Allman Report brought to you by Proctor Drapery Blinds and Shutters. Proctor, spelled like doctor. ProctorDrapery.com.
You don't know me, but I'm your
Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Fancy Friday here. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL. Ashton with the great call on the tunes there. Way to go.
I'm just going to go ahead and say the quiet part out loud for the rest of the class. The fact that Keith Richards and Willie Nelson have outlived Richard Simmons, that's really got me rethinking this whole eating healthy, exercising thing.
Yeah, buddy, I think you raise a really good point there, and just thought maybe I would give you something to think about throughout the weekend. Meantime, ladies and gentlemen, oh yes, the star of stage and screen. His name is Tim Jones, former speaker Tim Jones, and it is the Tim Jones and the Christopher Arp Show, 4 o'clock every day here on News Talk STL. Tim Jones, how's it going, brother?
Doing great, Jamie. Jamie, that's my motto. Work hard, but yet play hard. Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, and he really makes a really good point. He's got the, of course,
you gotta wonder.
I have to tell you, though, in all honesty, back in the day when Richard Simmons was around, Richard Simmons really never looked all that healthy. You know what I mean? And it's like he always looked like he's fat, but he's tan. And so I guess that makes him skinnier or something, but he never really was the picture of health to me. But anyway, that neither here nor there. Hey, listen, I was talking earlier, and you might have some insight into this. I know you've dealt with this throughout your political career, but this is becoming a really big thing all throughout Missouri, as a matter of fact, because assessors in counties everywhere are just absolutely drilling homeowners with huge increases in their assessments. And it's become a really big thing in St. Louis County. I know everybody's got a story to tell when I brought it up in the beginning of the show here regarding their own experiences, but this is just outrageous.
Yeah, Jamie, here's the problem too. Assessors all over the state have been gaming the system in both ways for decades. And now they're trying to rectify all these problems while screwing us property owners and taxpayers along the way. Right. And Jamie, I don't take my word for it, because I am familiar with rural Missouri. My father grew up on a dirt farm in Southwest Missouri. And so I do have some familiarity. But as far as the rural areas writ large, I have learned most of this from my friends and colleagues who live there and own property. And they will tell you that for decades, the assessors who wanted to always get reelected to office would under-assess the rural areas, right? While we were getting hosed and screwed here in the suburban and urban areas, because most of our assessors had a center-left to far-left disposition, right? And so, Jamie, you can't have it both ways, right? And that's the problem. That's why we're in the pickle we're in now. And these assessors outstate are now they basically have been caught, and they're being told they need to jack up their assessments because they didn't properly manage it along the way. And so now you have outstate Missouri, which is basically way underassessed in many areas, and you have urban and suburban Missouri, which is dramatically overassessed, right? Because let's be honest, Jamie, who's funding all of these roads and bridges to nowhere, across most of the state? We've paved basically every gravel road we possibly could. Well, it's all come from St. Louis, Kansas City, and Springfield, right? Because that's where the money is. And so the appropriators go to where the money is. And look, I don't want anybody to pay an improper assessment. But when you've got under assessments for decades outstate and over assessments in the suburban and urban in-state, Jamie, guess what? The proverbial paying the piper is now here, and so now everybody's just getting screwed.
Yeah, that's crazy, and it was interesting when you mentioned the rural areas getting kind of a lower assessment and getting really people treated well by some people who want to get reelected. So in St. Louis County, it is appearing that there are certain areas that are getting really walloped and other areas that are not. And it just so happens it kind of coincides with the political makeup of the county districts, the county council districts. So Republican districts are getting hammered and Democrat districts are not getting as hammered.
Yeah, that's probably very true. And so, Jamie, we have this statewide, we actually have something called the State Tax Commission. So, Jamie, shouldn't it be their job to make sure that the system of taxation all across Missouri is as low, but yet as fair as possible, right? As broad-based, but as fair as possible. That's what we as fiscal conservatives always advocate for. So for anybody who's going to run around and say, Tim Jones said to screw the rural people and that, the Democrats are over assessing us. Well, no, how about a low and fair and more, I'll borrow a word from the left because they've stolen them all from us, equitable system of taxation for everyone, right? Isn't that what the State Tax Commission should be doing? What have they been doing the last 40, 50 years in Missouri? That's my question.
Yeah. Well, and also your buddy Nick Shore.
Why is it so screwed up, right, Jamie? Why is it so screwed up? Why are these assessors doing one thing in one county and another thing in another county? And it seems like the taxpayers are now getting screwed, every 6 ways from Sunday.
Yeah. And I remember you were around, I think, with the passage of the Hancock Amendment. And your buddy Nick Schroer had mentioned that it's interesting how the assessors who are all in concert increasing the assessments, they're doing so just under the line that was drawn by the Hancock Amendment so that we really don't have that to pull for our defense.
That's right. That's exactly right. So we need, Jamie, our problem is, and I brought this up a million times, and I'm not arguing that we should completely eradicate our term limit system, but our term limits in Missouri are so restrictive when you look at, first of all, there's only like 22 states in the union, I think, 22, 23. It's less than half that have term limits on their legislature. So let's realize that a lot of states operate extremely well without term limits. I'm not saying we eradicate them, but ours are so restrictive. Here's what happens. Nobody has a long-term view in Missouri, right? You get up, you become a legislative leader, and then you have a maximum of maybe 3 years left. Like the most I've seen over the last 20 years that anybody is in one of the top 4 positions of power, majority leader in either chamber, speaker, or Senate president. The most I've seen is 4 years, right? And so your time horizon is so short that when it comes to big ticket, long-term view things, and I guess that's where I come in as someone who's, a lot of speakers ride off into the sunset and enjoy their lives and don't have any more headaches. And I just ask for more headaches every single day because I haven't given up on our state yet. My children are still here. I hope they continue to live here. I hope they don't move away for the sunny shores of Florida or the no tax environments of Tennessee. I haven't given up on Missouri. Some days I feel like it, but I haven't given up because I do have that long-term view. And Jamie, nobody has that right now. Like, what do we want our state to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And what that requires is wanting to completely revamp our system of taxation. It's gotten so out of whack with all these tax credit programs. I like that Governor Kehoe, on one hand, is talking consistently about eliminating the income tax. But then, Jamie, he calls the legislature back in for a special session and says, let's give $1.5 billion to billionaire sports owners.
Yeah.
I would have rather given that money back to the people and eliminated the income tax. He's trying to do two things at once that don't quite make fiscal sense. And that's because we don't have long-term views in our General Assembly where, yes, Hancock has gotten so gamed, it's almost to the point where it needs a complete overhaul to make it effective again. We need a taxpayer bill of rights. We need to eliminate the income tax. We need to get rid of all these loopholes and tax credit programs. There's so much we need to do, but it's going to require people to have a long-term view and not just always be worried about their next election or what they're going to do after they term out.
Boy, isn't that the truth? And I remember you and I talking right after the State of the State address by Governor Kehoe, and you were giving it plaudits as well as also giving it some criticism for the very same thing you're talking about now, although at the time, he was talking about eliminating the income tax, and you were concerned about all the ways in which he was increasing spending, and the stadiums weren't even on there at the time.
No,
so
they were not mentioned in the State of the State. Hey, by the way, we're going to give $1.5 billion to billionaire sports owners. Who wants to clap for that? Well, he didn't put that line in because he knew it wouldn't be very popular.
And he also knew that he couldn't at the same time say legitimately that he wanted to decrease or even eliminate the state income tax.
Correct.
Crazy.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct. Because it'd be nice if there was like a consistent school of thought, right? Like, how about we focus on eliminating the income tax? I started that effort back when I was speaker. I had tons of help, did not do it by myself, but somebody in a position of leadership had to say, let's do this. And so I said that in the House. And guess what? Now, U.S. Senator Eric Schmidt, he had the bill in the Senate. I worked with Speaker Pro Tem at the time, Tom Dempsey. Andrew Koenig was with me in the House at the time, brilliant legislator. And it took everybody to vote for it. And so, yeah, we kind of were like, that was and so we need those big thinkers in today's legislature to say, yeah, let's get this done. But at the same time, as you said, Jamie, you can't be spending worse than drunken sailors and giving billions of dollars away to sports team owners. And Jamie, did you see the story? Boy, Jamie, for everybody who took the hook, line, and sinker during the special session, did you see the stories that came out of the last 24 hours? Now the Chiefs and the Royals are going, yeah, thanks for everything you guys did, but you may not have done enough. And, that whole June 30th deadline that we told you about, yeah, we just kind of use that so we could get all these offers on the table. Jamie, isn't everybody who voted for that going to feel really stupid if the teams either come back and ask for more, or if one of them does go ahead, despite everything you did in giving the store away, go ahead and move to the state of Kansas?
Yeah, unbelievable. I wish I knew. I think we talked about this a little bit, but how this really came about in the end, like who was the initiator of these discussions, because it did seemingly come out of the blue, although you might feel differently about that. It might not have come out of the blue to you, but it certainly did to me and a bunch of other people who are like, where did this whole thing come from? I didn't even hear this mentioned a month ago.
No, you're right. The idea, I will say this, the concept was being mumbled about behind the scenes. But as far as the actual execution and language of the actual bills, that did largely get dropped out of the sky in the last 4 days of the session. The concept of, hey, maybe we're going to have to do something about the Chiefs and the Royals and their desire for new stuff versus moving to another state, that had been around since the last year of the Parson administration. But you are correct in remembering it correctly, that the actual language, which ended up being pretty horrific for the taxpayers, that did not get dropped in the legislative session until the last 3 days, and then the special session immediately followed.
Yeah, it's funny how that models the behavior in Washington, where they just suddenly put people in a situation where they hand them bills that they don't have time to read, and all this stuff. It's like this pressure build. It's crazy. Yeah. All right, man. So we'll see you at 4:00 today, you and Christopher. And I wanted to ask you, at one point you were going to Israel also.
Yes.
And then
the trip's been rescheduled.
Good. Yeah. Because Christopher left right before you, and then something happened, and you're like, and they were thinking, well, maybe we shouldn't purposely go over there. Chris is kind of trapped over there, but we don't want to just purposely run over there right in the middle of all this.
Well, Newsmax, who is one of our great partners here at News Talk STL, this was their trip that they were going to be led. And They have thrown out some new dates in mid-August. And Jamie, we're hoping by then that Donald Trump's peace in the Middle East plan is completely effectuated and consummated. What a remarkable president. For all those nattering nabobs of negativity out there, this guy is the most consequential president in my lifetime since Reagan. And I put him on the same plane now because Donald Trump is bringing peace to the Middle East. So, yeah, we're hoping to go back over there.
Be good.
Chris was so fascinated and undaunted by his experience that he may be going back with me, and that'd be really cool.
Right.
And we'll be possibly both, reporting live from a brand new Middle East and a renaissance in the region.
Christopher's got the Israel bug now, huh? Okay. And by the way, I didn't go unnoticed. I love a guy who quotes Spiro Agnew because nobody really does that anymore. So good for you, brother.
Just for you.
I knew it. All right, Tim Jones. We'll see you at 4:00 here on News Talk STL, man. Thanks so much for your time.
JV, always appreciate going on with you, my friend. Thanks so much for everything. Continue to have a great show.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. That is the great Tim Jones, Christopher Arp show here, 4:00 on News Talk STL. And speaking of that war and the bombing and peace talks and everything else, I don't know. You guys have to understand there are certain people at Fox News who kind of hide underneath the Fox News type of thing, and they hide underneath it, and they are really, in the end, kind of like they're never Trumpers, but they don't let on. But oftentimes they get caught. And this person on Fox News was absolutely caught. And we'll follow up on that in the other side of this. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
You don't know my kind in you. Very soon the time will tell.
Follow us on Rumble at News Talk STL.
I think we should be able to have a civil conversation.
The news and talk that matters to St. Louis.
This conversation has completely made me crazy.
This is complete insanity.
News Talk STL.
This is Larry Connors, and my favorite sandwich at Capriati's is a Philly cheesesteak with peppers. Sweet peppers, but sometimes hot peppers. I love Capriati's, and so will you.
Open 9 to 9 daily on Manchester at McKnight in Rock Hill.
How do you find a roofing contractor you can trust? You could randomly pick one and cross your fingers. Or here's a better idea. Choose Expert Group Contracting. We're proud to use America's most trusted roofing brand, Owens Corning. That means we've been screened for reliability, professionalism, and customer service. Residential or commercial roofing, licensed, insured, and offering free estimates. Why take chances on your roof? Visit expertgroupcontracting.com. That's expert with an X, groupcontracting.com.
What's the best way to get rid of a timeshare that you don't want? Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline. We're a group of attorneys that help customers legally exit their timeshares. It's an easy process. We guarantee results or you pay nothing. Exit your timeshare today. Call now.
800-524-1641. 800-524-1641. That's 800-524-1641.
I think you're a little confused.
News, analysis, opinion.
I've got something to say and I can't hold it any longer.
101.9 and 94.1.
You won't hear the truth anywhere but here. News Talk STL.
News Talk STL.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Allman Report. This is News Talk STL. And so, yeah, at Fox News, it's interesting. There are some people there who kind of float underneath the radar, but you know that they really are like never Trump people. And Jillian Turner, for instance, who does a show with John Roberts when What's Your Nuts isn't there, and he's filling in for her. And Jillian Turner is kind of one of those people. You see her kind of make these criticisms of Jesse Waters, and she never smiles, and she's kind of like this dour, too good for Fox News type of person. But the one who really is, and this goes way, way back, that is Jennifer Griffin. So a long time ago, you guys remember when Shepard Smith was on, and the Shepard Smith show was so bad. It was so anti-Trump. Of course, Shepard Smith isn't there, which kind of, he began the hemorrhaging from the airwaves and from even the newspapers of people who just kind of made a run at President Trump and missed. Now, we all know that a few people did, and they came back, and I get it. But Jennifer Griffin had this back in the day, was always on Shepard Smith's show, and she always had this skepticism of President Trump. She was actually, I think, covering some of the campaigns and that kind of thing. And so she was right there kind of as not an agnostic reporter, but as a person who critiqued President Trump, but it came across like it was just a regular news report. I mean, it really was true that she seemed to have a negative attitude about President Trump. Well, so she gets into this heated discussion with Pete Hegseth yesterday, her former colleague, by the way, about the bunkers and about this thing. Because right now what we're seeing an administration trying to tell people, look, we were successful. And again, the U.S. as well as Israel would have no interest in upplaying something that was a failure. They wouldn't do that because it wouldn't help them. And sometimes you have to have common sense. Like, well, why would President Trump, Pete Hegseth, along with Israel, claim that they obliterated something when they didn't? Because the chances are good that if they didn't obliterate it, 2 months from now, it comes back and it's horrible. They have no real interest, and there's nothing to gain from lying about the results of this mission. There's really nothing to gain from it. There's nothing to gain from underestimating how the Iranians prepared and all that kind of stuff. And so, moving the uranium, moving this, I mean, there's no reason to sit there and lie about something that ultimately would have really bad consequences if it was true your mission failed. So anyway, she always comes across and so this time, and you've got to know back in the day that when Pete Hegseth and Jennifer Griffin were working together, I have a feeling there's a little history here. You know what I mean? I have a feeling there's a little bit of history here.
Certainty that all the highly enriched uranium was inside the Fordo Mountain, or some of it, because there were satellite photos that showed more than a dozen trucks there 2 days in advance. Are you certain none of that highly enriched uranium was moved?
Of course, we're watching every single aspect, but Jennifer, you've been about the worst, the one who misrepresents the most intentionally. What the president says. I'm familiar.
About the ventilation shafts on Saturday night. And in fact, I was the first to describe the B-2 bombers, the refueling, the entire mission with great accuracy. So I take issue with that.
I appreciate you acknowledging that this was the
issues.
the most successful mission based on operational security that this department has done since you've been here. And I appreciate that. So we're looking at all aspects of intelligence.
So anyway,
ensure we have a sense.
And something happened between those two at some point. And I think it also goes back to when Hegseth was nominated to be defense secretary. I can almost guarantee you Jennifer Griffin was among those who was leaking to the news media about Pete Hegseth, making claims that were not true, whatever. And I think Pete Hegseth knows that. But to his point about Jennifer Griffin being the worst, he says this because she has had a pattern of reporting information that was either out of context or untrue because she's got a bunch of people who are leaking to her. Let's first talk about those trucks. So it turns out, because just because you see trucks, what are those, uranium carrier trucks? Moving uranium generally is not a thing that you just kind of shove it into a truck. It looks like these long bed trucks. And there were people who were observing this who said those are clearly trucks that were delivering cement and dirt and everything else, because what they did was they tried to cover up those holes that the bunker busters eventually went through. So these were construction vehicles. These were not vehicles that were somehow moving uranium. Now, again, I don't know what kind of truck moves uranium. I have no idea, but I guarantee you a truck that moves uranium is not interchangeable with a truck that is moving asphalt and rocks. I mean, I don't think so. But again, just to kind of claim so the reporters right now are looking at trucks and they're saying, well, those must have moved the uranium, when there's no connection whatsoever, but their conclusion is they moved uranium. And again, what interest would the Trump administration, Pete Hegseth, or anybody have in overstating the results of the mission? Because it's not something that goes away. You can't just come in and say, yeah, this mission was really successful, and then know that 2 months later you're going to have egg on your face. The risk is really strong. And to be in a situation where you actually are overstating a mission, and the consequences could be that 2 months from now, Iran shoots a nuclear weapon at Israel. Imagine the consequences of that for everybody. I'm talking about politically, geopolitically, and beyond. There'd be, again, no interest in overplaying this. So instead, what you have is a news media that continues to try and play the devil's advocate for some reason. I'm not saying they have to take everything hook, line, and sinker, but to the point where every day, Hegseth, President Trump, and beyond, they have to go out and defend themselves every day. It's pretty unbelievable. So here's another one that Jennifer Griffin put out, and this was yesterday, and this, of course, then drew the ire of the likes of Pete Hegseth, etc. Experts, and this is something she put out on X. Experts believe this is the suspected third strike that the Iranians told the IAEA about before the U.S. strikes, and where Iran may have moved some of its highly enriched uranium. It is near Natanz and was not targeted or bombed. So she's putting out and reprinting this story from the Telegraph, of all places, the Telegraph in the UK, which is kind of like the Weekly World Reader. The Telegraph would do stories on the war and then do a story about Bat Boy, who lives in Australia and he's got ears like a bat. That's the Telegraph. And she's tweeting these stories. Iran's hidden nuclear fortress, Trump's bombs can't reach. So basically what she's doing is she is what is called simping, which is basically prostituting yourself for propaganda for Iran, because Iran wants the world to believe still that they can make a bomb. And the reality is President Trump and Israel don't want them to have a bomb, and would never lie to cover up the fact that they will still have a bomb. I mean, if that were the case, they'd go right back there and blow it up again. So instead, what you're seeing is Jennifer Griffin going out there on X and basically just kind of mocking the president and Hegseth and everybody else and saying, well, you really didn't. They have all this uranium now, ha, 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 that you can't get to, your bombs can't get to, nah, nah, nah. And clearly, it's all speculation. I mean, just showing us satellite photos of some bunker or whatever with a bunch of yellow lines and lettering and all that kind of stuff doesn't make it into a fact. And that's really what Hegseth is trying to say. And I've noticed this about Jennifer Griffin, that she has that there's something that's really not trustworthy about her. And she's the Fredo of Fox News. And here's the other thing. One thing you might not have caught when I was reading her ex, she said, experts believe this is the suspected third site that the Iranians told the IAEA about before the U.S. strikes, and where Iran may have moved some of its highly enriched uranium. Experts. So Jennifer Griffin, and I'm really a stickler about this, and always have been as a reporter and beyond, but attribution is so important, not only to the credibility of your story, but to the respect of the people who are consuming your news reporting and beyond. And what's happened is a lot of reporters have determined that if they just say experts, they don't have to say the names of the people. Because really, in the end, the determination of who is an expert should be determined by the people who are reading the story and vetting the information coming from people. And so when you name an expert, I can go and find out whether or not I would consider that person to be an expert. But what the news media does is they're blanket accepting this information as being true by attributing it to experts. That's not sufficient reporting. That's not complete reporting. And how that still happens at the national level, how even reporters can say sources say without naming them. And what's happened is we as news consumers have just kind of gotten used to accepting this. It's kind of like the way we use, they always do this, and they're they, and every once in a while somebody might ask you, who's they? And then suddenly you're like, oh, I don't really know. There's a bunch of people I've heard about or heard from. So yeah, so that's something that we in our normal course of life sometimes use the word they to describe something, and we really don't actually know who says it, or we couldn't put a name to it. But that's just us talking amongst each other. When you're a reporter and you are a professional journalist, the expectations are a little higher. The need for being thorough is a little higher. And so at that point, they're just making stuff up. Experts say, it's like, who are they? I mean, who are they? And Jennifer Griffin doesn't mention them. So anyway, keep an eye out for her. She's got something. And also, by the way, she looks like the kind of person who has something on someone, and that's why she's still there. So I'm not saying she's not talented or whatever. She's apparently, at least good on TV and everything else, but she's got something. She's standing there and she's got a knife in her hand behind her. That's what it looks like to me. All right, people. This is the Allman Report on this fancy Friday News Talk STL. Hope you're having a good one.
It's Friday.
This is News Talk STL at 1019 991 HD3 and newstalkstl.com.
Hey, it's Vic Porcelli here with our great friend Chris Cooper from Serenity Wealth Management. Hi, Chris. How are you, Vic? I don't want to put anybody else down, but when you go up and visit you at Serenity Wealth, your place looks like home.
So a lot of financial advisory offices, they have, the big mahogany desk or the big marble entryways and things like that. The stock market channel on the TV when you walk in the door, right? That doesn't really drive a good conversation. Good financial guidance and advice starts with a good conversation. People are nervous. People are afraid to talk about finances, right? And so you can see a little standoffish. Well, my objective is to try to have a good casual conversation. By having those conversations about life, goals, objectives, it's what makes me understand what our financials are supposed to fund.
So if somebody does want to have a good conversation, how do they do that? How do they find you?
Our website is the best way to do that because you can get all the information you need, understand where we are, get a little bit more information, all that. SerenityWealthNow.com.
Reach out to Chris and Stacy today at SerenityWealthNow.com.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors, LLC. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The big, beautiful bill will result in a lot of tax implications. We'll speak with Grover Norquist of Americans for Tax Reform on what it all means for you.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps. Weekdays at 4 on News Talk STL.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Common Sense Radio, and it is indeed Jamie Allman here with you, Ashton over there. And nice to see Mama Kay back on the feed. And she says, I heard you talking about your Mennonite grandma. Yes, indeed. I'm growing San Marzano tomatoes this year. Awesome. Yeah, I'm growing a bunch of different tomatoes and peppers and everything else. I thought for a second there, my Melrose peppers, which are great on Italian beef sandwiches and the pride of Chicago. I thought that plant was going to go away because things were eating on it, and now it's just fine. So I have my tomatillos are growing like crazy. Yeah, that rain really helped in the end, and got my asparagus growing. I just harvested my garlic, which I grew over the winter time. And still no one has been able to explain to me how my thyme survived all throughout the winter. I don't know what it is about that plant and about that herb, but the thyme plant, with all the snow, all the ice and everything else, come spring, it was just sitting there the same way it had always been sitting there. It was just absolutely crazy how that worked out. So, yeah, got really, well, I'll have to share those stories. It's all coming together sooner or later, and I've got a bunch of parsley and cilantro growing, and I got this this Greek basil, which is a little bit more basil-y than regular basil, than like pesto basil. So the Greek basil's really great. So I've been making a lot of different pestos and things like that with it. So, and I'm going to be doing some pickling. So I love doing that kind of stuff. All right. Ashlyn was asking me, because I was all blabbering on about journalism and stuff, about whether or not I had always wanted to be a journalist. And I was like, well, I don't know about journalism, but I do remember when I was a little kid, and I used to read the newspaper. I used to have like a boom box, and I would read the newspaper into the boom box like a newscaster, because I was always watching the news and always fascinated by the news. Watched the Watergate hearings when I was a little kid, and when I was 9 or 10, watching the Watergate hearing, 10 maybe. Let's see, 1974, 73. So they had to be 10, 11. Watched the Watergate hearings, and always knew everybody who was on TV, all the people who were on all the news anchors and everybody like that. I'll never forget one time, I always knew Max Roby was on Channel 4, and I remember at one point where I was working at Channel 4 when I got older. So if you can imagine what a trip it was to grow up watching people like Julius Hunter, even Larry Connors for that matter, as a kid, as a teenager, everything else. And then suddenly coming back, or Robin Smith, and then suddenly coming back to your hometown, and you're suddenly working in the same newsroom as the people you watched your whole life. Like, it's kind of a trip. And believe me, they don't want to really hear it. I watched you when I was 11. It's not really something that people always want to hear, especially Julius Hunter. I mean, I remember my first memory really of Julius Hunter was when he announced on television that my soccer coach at Christ the King, who was a University City police officer, had been shot to death. Officer Graham. And he was a soccer coach, I think, for the upper level. But I always saw him because he was they were great ahead of me. He'd always come and he'd be wearing his patent leather black shoes and have his keys all going, but would wear his T-shirt. So he'd take his uniform off, but his pants and T-shirt. And he was shot during a domestic disturbance, which is horrible. Officer Graham was a hero, and I remember Julius Hunter hearing that on the news from Julius Hunter. Isn't that a trip? And so then I'll never forget Julius Hunter from that level. But anyway, Max Roby. So I'm sitting there, and there's Jim Bolin, who when I was a kid was like a clown or something he had a clown show, and he was a cool guy, really nice guy. But he was literally on Channel 4 and in the Channel 4 newsroom, and he was on the phone with Max Roby, who was like an old friend of his. And Max Roby at that time was retired in Arizona. And so I asked Jim, I was like, you're talking, he's like, I don't know how I found out he was talking to Max Roby, whatever. Hey, Max, whatever. And I was like, hey, can I talk to Max Roby? So I asked, I was like 26, I told Jim Bull, I said, hey, can I talk to Max Roby? And he's like, sure. So he hands me the phone, and here I am on the phone with Max Roby. I'm 26 years old. Watched Max Roby since I was like 10 years old. And I was like, Max Roby, I watched you my whole life, and I just want to say hi. And I even didn't know what to say. I was like on the phone with Max Roby. Like, what am I supposed to say? And he goes, oh, thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate you. I'm saying, so you're working in the same newsroom where I was. I'm like, yeah, exactly. It's so cool. And so I got a chance to talk to Max Roby. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Jim Bolin was Cookie and the Captain. Corky the Clown was Cliff St. James. He was the weatherman over there at Channel 5. So, but anyway, so it goes way back in the day. You have binders, at school, binders. And you had those little metal things in the binder, those big ones. I would take I would open up the binder and then I would take a pencil and I would click it in between the little binders. And so I'd be sitting there at my desk, and the pencil would be shooting up like it was a microphone. And I'd be talking into that and disturbing the teacher and everything else. That's what I made my little news desk with my pencil in that thing. Anyway, that's a long answer to your question there, Ashlyn. That's just how it goes. But I do love telling stories like that. I've got a million of them from when I was in TV here and the legendary TV. And so then I really, my goal was to never get into a situation where I resembled anything on the air close to The View.
I think it's much more insidious than that. I think it really is an attack on the free press. I think he is much more comfortable, like many dictators and many authoritarians, with state-sponsored television.
Actually, it's so interesting how they're going after Trump for questioning the press. And so you have to understand that, when I was younger, all of these people in the news business, like, they respected their craft. Like, you never knew how they felt. Robin Smith, who was a really huge mentor of mine at Channel 4, she's the nicest person. When I first got there, she was probably the sweetest to me of everybody. And Robin Smith with the bun on her head, she was really good. She started when she was like 19 years old. But you'd never know how she thought about politics by watching the news. Or you never knew how Connor stood. You never knew how Julius Hunter felt. and I'm focusing on the people that I work more closely with. Though there was never that kind of, not necessarily adversarial, because they were doing their jobs and they would ask tough questions, but you couldn't watch the news and say, oh, he's liberal, he's this. And I think to a certain degree, the anchors in St. Louis specifically still, I never knew, I don't even know what Mike Bush's politics are. You couldn't tell because he's a pro. So you don't really know. I've known him for years, and I still don't know. I couldn't tell you watching a newscast how Mike Bush votes, which is really a big thing, but also almost a rare thing in television these days, and in television news. And we're seeing it all day long, where news organizations have actually just become propaganda arms. And if they're not running against the president, they're constantly needling him because they hate him. I mean, I don't think there's any question when you look at how the news business and everybody else. And that's Pamela Bolin, Jim's daughter, and Jim Bolin definitely respected his craft. Jim and Robin, when they did that news, and Jim was the nicest guy too. But he and Robin, it was so cool. 1 second. I will have to tell you, Pamela, I love Jim. And Jim when he let me talk to Max Roby, that was the coolest thing. So anyway, he and Robin did this, because Jim did weather at one point, but then it was an excellent news guy. And he and Robin, back in those days at the Channel 4 newsroom, we had like a little smoking area with a sliding glass door in it. And he and Robin would sit in there and smoke before the news. If you could imagine back in the day, that's when people smoked on airplanes. Those are the good old days. That people smoked I was actually in the newsroom when people had ashtrays on their desks. And so when I first got there, that's what people did. And then they created the smoking room, because all these babies didn't want smoke. But I'm calling them babies, but I'm just kidding, because the truth of the matter is, the exhaust system wasn't the best, there. So when you smoked, we were like in a basement, of the building, the Gateway Tower, or whatever they call it, right next to the arch there. And there were no windows, no nothing. And so you could imagine that when smoking happened. But anyway, they were the greatest. They were sitting there, and they had a good relationship. I think they also needled each other sometimes too. It was just old school, just the good times. But anyway, the news, the way it is now, the news, you have organizations that really, it's their sole goal to undermine President Trump. And when Biden was around, it was their sole goal to prop him up. And so, yeah, President Trump's going to be frustrated. President Trump doesn't want a state-run television. President Trump just wants journalists and other people to be fair, to do their job. There's no reason why President Trump has to turn around every day. It's like, oh, you again. Here you are with another piece of fake news, and CNN, when they leaked all that stuff, or that person leaked it and then they reported it. That's just not right by any stretch of the imagination.
Go to a place like Russia, and I've actually been to Russia. You watch television, mainland China, you can't trust what you're hearing.
Yeah, well, welcome to the US of A. It's so funny that Sonny Hostin acts as if watching one television station regurgitating state news and propaganda is any different than watching 5 of them all saying the same thing. It's not different, Sonny. Believe me. Get out of your cocoon, and you'll see that having one television station where you have the guy kind of reading the state propaganda. It's no different here in the USA, except you have 5 different television stations reading the same propaganda. And it's anti-government, anti-Trump propaganda. I mean, I don't mind anti-government because I'm kind of that way. But, it's anti-Trump propaganda. But there's no difference. And these people all think that it's weird the world they're living in. They don't understand that our perspective here as Americans is that the news media, the way it is now, as a left-wing liberal propagandizing cabal. I'm talking about the national news media. News media as it is now is no different than really a state-run media. They're a state-run media here in the USA, but essentially what I mean by state-run is they are a party's apparatus. Really in the end, they're a propaganda tool for a political ideology and a worldview. And so I hate to break the news to you, Sonny, but we don't see any difference between the kind of thing you're describing there in Russia and all of you basically aping each other's attacks on President Trump and against on the. I mean, every single story is the same across every network. Trump's, you got the whole 3 days of the pearl clutching over the Trump's military parade. Then you have the whole thing about the bombing and how unsuccessful. Everybody's kind of going along the same thing, and they're all quoting each other. And every other news organization, CNN says it, and then every other news organization is like, well, CNN says, and another media outlet is their source. Which, again, you've heard me talk about this ad nauseum. I still don't understand how news organizations think that is a legit source for news, another news outlet. Reporting from a source. It's just totally and completely unprofessional. And I feel like I am wasting my breath and repeating myself all the time about that. But that really is a confounding thing to me. As Ketanji Jackson Brown would say, I don't understand. I don't understand. All right. I hope you guys have a wonderful, beautiful, safe weekend. Ashlyn, thank you so much for everything this week, and love you guys. Coming up, we've got the great Tony Colombo and Colombo and Company. This is News Talk STL. Common Sense Radio.
Irrigation systems are put through the stress test throughout our hot Heartland summers when temperatures skyrocket and rain is scarce. Tim Jones here for Hydrodynamics Core, which you should call today to make sure your irrigation system is running at peak performance. This is critical to ensure your lawn and foliage remain lush and lovely and that your grass and plants thrive instead of just barely survive. Schedule a monthly system checkup today with Hydrodynamics Core to make sure your irrigation system is working at its best. That's hydrodynamicscore.com, hydrodynamicscore.com.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness One. Wellness One is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense